Hello and welcome to another video or episode, depending on whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast player. Now, you can probably hear over the audio and definitely see if you're on the YouTube that I have a new studio setup. So hopefully we should have some better quality video images and sound quality uh, for future interviews and recordings. So this is just a kind of a test for that. So do let me know how it's sounds and looks. I appreciate the feedback. So, on to what we're talking about today. So, I thought we'd take a little bit of a look at mindsets. Now, I'm a big proponent of reading. I love a good book, and I love a lot of psychology books, a lot of behavioral books I find very interesting. But every now and again, I come across a book that completely changes the way I look at a certain thing, or a certain concept, or a certain behavior. And this has happened at different points in my life. But I can distinctly remember one book pretty early on in my studies at university when I was doing a teaching degree. I found a book by Carol Dweck, which I think called Mindset: Psychology of Success. And this introduced to me the idea of a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And as I said, completely changed the way that I thought about my own learning, thought about myself, and also how I approached teaching others and helping them as well. And I'm probably going to make some mistakes here, summarizing it up, but essentially the premise of the book is that there are two different mindsets. You have a fixed mindset or you have a growth mindset. Now, a fixed mindset is where you kind of believe that you are God or whatever given, or whatever process you believe in, given certain talents at birth. You either win or lose the giant genetic lottery or a specific level of intelligence or specific ability to do different things. And that's pretty much set. And you are either really good at something or you're not. And on the other side of the spectrum, a growth mindset is all about going, okay, no, actually, we can change that. That we're not, that there's opportunities for growth in everything. And that just because we can't do something doesn't mean we can't do it ever. So, favorite thing to say is, oh, so you can't do it yet. And it seems like a sensible shift, but it is interesting how pervasive the fixed mindset is and how easily we can create it inadvertently. So my realization when I read this was that I was very much operating from a fixed mindset. There were some things that I was really good at and came to naturally. And then there were other things that I just fully believed that I couldn't do, that it was just because I struggled with them and because of the way my brain was wired in a more left-brained way, that there are some things that at my core I would never be good at and I could never do. And the book really challenged me to look at those things and go, okay, well, do you really believe that everyone's fixed and that your talents and abilities and skills are fixed at this point now and they will never change? And so over the course of the rest of my university career, I had a look at how I could change and modify my attitude towards a fixed or towards a more growth-oriented mindset and go, okay, well, I feel like I'm not good at this now, but that doesn't mean I can't be good at it later. And I actually had a real kind of cut point where this shifted. So coming into university from sixth form college and everything else, I was skating on my essential book learning. I read a lot of books as a child, and so my writing at the time was based on what I read. So essentially, I was just mentally copying that something would look right. And I'd absorbed all of this information from the books, and things just followed a logical process. But that doesn't necessarily work within the academic framework. So I left college with really high grades, and then the first year they really started to drop in university as I struggled. And a lot of the people that didn't have the greatest grades in college were starting to gather pace and they're starting to get better at it because they'd actually had to work at the studies, at the underlying study skills. They had to take apart the structure of an essay and really piece it together with intention. And they had a model for doing it. Whereas I was just writing basically how I felt I should write. So for me, the growth mindset was then, okay, I'm in a fixed mindset now. I believe this is why am I struggling here? I shouldn't be able to struggle here. Clearly, I'm struggling here because I don't have the skills. Then going through to a growth mindset, going, okay, I don't have the skills yet. How can I acquire the skills? And that meant going to a study tutor, a study mentor. The university was really good and they provided mentors there. The next block came when was really struggling in schools because kind of autistic background, not particularly good with people in that way. And I fully took on that uh, personality trait that, well, okay, I'm autistic, so I must struggle with everything and nothing can change that. But no, if I got a one-to-one support for that and was able to work through a lot of my problems and get to a point where I was coping with school again. That was really the growth mindset that allowed me to make those changes that didn't hold me back. Good. And then onwards, I would hope by this point I have a growth mindset. It's been I've had to I've had to realize at points that fixed mindset is in place that believes that I am not good at being therapeutic, not good at dealing with people, not an effective communicator. I had all of these rationalizations in my head that this is just who I am. And I've had to consistently challenge those, and some of those have been deeply embedded. But bringing that growth mindset has helped with that. And it has shifted my thinking over time. So, from that perspective, it's a really valuable developmental tool. You stop looking at things as hard um, as hard barriers. Instead, you look at it as challenges on a path that you're always going to be improving. So good um, as a personal philosophy and thought process. But as educators and as leaders, it is important for us to also be able to recognize that in the people that we work with. And I would say the fixed mindset is increasingly prevalent now amongst the children that I work with. You see it all the time, and the way it manifests most often is in a fear of failure. That somehow, if they try at something and don't do well at it, that it reveals something about themselves, that they are not worthy, that they cannot achieve, that they are not good enough. And it's linked to some really fragile mental health because someone with a fixed mindset, as soon as they come up against a challenge, it can drive them into despair because it immediately says something about them as a person or at least they think it does. Whereas someone with a growth mindset will up against a challenge and then immediately start thinking about ways that they can change things, the way that they can grow, how they can they overcome it, how can they find help to do that, and so on. And it's just moving the thinking onwards. Like it's just a hiccup. There's just 50 failures on the path to success, and each failure get gets you a little closer. And I don't even like using the word failure. It's just there's an obstacle or just something didn't work out, and we just need to iterate a new edition. So we see that a lot in that fixed mindset, like I'm no good at firelighting. Had another child go, I'm no good at cooking. Well, okay, let's just have a try. And turns out they were just fine. They just never had that opportunity at home to practice. And that's why some children were coming in with great skills and they would be able to do it just fine and make the pancakes and cook the um, dumplings or whatever, whereas others were just struggling because they hadn't had that before, and they were looking at the people who could do it and were successful and going, "Oh, that must be because they are just naturally more gifted." So recognizing where that fixed mindset in it, and then challenging it, and the way we do it, the way that Carol Dweck sets out in her book for dealing with this, it comes down to something that we deal a lot with when we're talking in forest school and outdoor learning, and that is extrinsic and intrinsic motivation and how we use praise. And this is the critical shift that will make someone move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. So fixed mindset, you'll find that a lot of the children or people who have a fixed mindset, what they've been rewarded for is the outcome, not the process. So telling a child, you are so clever, you are so good at things, or you can paint a beautiful picture, or wow, that essay you wrote is amazing. They take that on board, but then as soon as they reach a point where they're maybe not as good at something and they have a challenge, something that comes in and challenges that. So say you told them that they are so clever and then they find a test or exam difficult. Suddenly they are catapulted into, well, if I'm struggling with this, this means I'm not clever enough. So fixed mindset gets reinforced when we praise the outcome. A growth mindset gets developed when we praise the effort. So when we go, I can tell you're trying really, really hard on that. That's good. I like how many different ways you've tried this. Oh, you produced this. Well done. It's a result of all of this hard work that you did there. It's rewarding the process. I mean, there's this whole subject of its own, praise and how to use it and whether you should use it. But it means we have to be intentional about how we use it and avoid driving people into that fixed mindset and instead encourage that growth mindset, the the ability to carry on going even if something fails or doesn't quite work out the same way. Because what we want in all of us is that growth mindset. So that's really what I'd want people to take away is see whether you can recognize that in yourself and others. And which whether you believe core at your core in a fixed mindset, whether you core believe it in a growth mindset for everything will dictate the big picture as well. Because someone with a fixed mindset who is teaching a child is much more likely to just ascribe their behaviors to that's the way they are. Someone with a growth mindset who believes in the growth mindset process will treat that child as an individual who's struggling and look at different ways that they can that they can help them do the better. It's going, oh, this child is just not good at maths. Well, maybe what they're not good at is maths out of context or maths on a piece of paper. Maybe what they need is something else. And the growth mindset teaches us that if something doesn't work, we try a different method, we try a different method. And we don't accept that people are just born a certain way and that will always struggle with something for the rest of life. Now, there could well be some of the extremes on the either side of the spectrum that mean you are hampered in some ways. For example, if you are under 5 foot tall, you're probably not going to be a basketball star. But there is a leeway within your potential, and everyone is gifted with a certain amount of talent and potential. And our job as educators is to help them go as far as they possibly can. And part of that is not accepting the early boundaries too early and not giving up too early. So there we go. I hope you found that as helpful as I did. I would thoroughly recommend. This is probably in one of my top 5 books to recommend. Picking up Carol Dweck's book. I'll make sure I've put a link down in the description for at least somewhere to Amazon, but do support your local bookstores and so on. It's a really good read and it helps in so many different areas. And if even if it just helps you being in a better mental space regarding learning and skills and abilities will help you move forward. And talking about being in a fixed mindset and starting to develop a growth mindset, if your fixed mindset is saying that you are not a knots person or not good at TARPs, then that is a fixed mindset, and I do believe I can help you change that. So, just a quick note to let you know that I have my Essential TARPs and Knots course releasing at the end of this month, end of October, and that is designed specifically for the people who go, I can't do knots. And I've worked with a lot of people who have struggled with this whole process of tying a knot, of remembering it. And I believe I've been able to move them forward and challenge that. Maybe the way you've been taught knots or the amount of repetition that you've done hasn't worked for you, but I truly believe that everyone can become good at knots and can have that confidence and that ability. So keep an eye out for that. If you'd like to learn more about that, you can drop me a message or join my mailing list. It's all on the brackenOutdoors.com website. With that, I'll say thank you so much for watching and listening. Remember to make the most of your day. I'll catch you all next time.